they were one of the first peoples to report these big footprints in the snow, and their guide, who was a native to the Himalayan area, had attributed them to the Mito Kangmi. Kangmi translates to snowman, and Mito to bear man or man bear. The writer of this piece got about half of that translation, but misinterpreted Mito, which is man bear, to filthy.
Oh, I thought that was going to be carrot nose.
No. So instead of writing filthy snowman, he was like, oh, I'm going to write the abominable snowman, which is the nickname.
Filthy snowman is the one who tells all those horrible, inappropriate jokes.
Well, what about frosty snowman? And filthy and frosty sound a lot closer. Right?
Yeah.
Frosty snowman. So they actually have a Frosty the Snowman legend in the Himalayas?
No, they have a man bear snowman legend, which is just like a white bear that's big.
Who tells really raunchy jokes.
But as you know...
No, filthy is a misinterpretation.
Yeah, and so the abominable snowman, as I said, never existed in Nepal.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Except for it was the Yeti. It was just a misinterpretation of...
Man bear.
Of man bear.
Man bear, yeah.
Snowman, man bear.
Yeah, man bear, snowman. Yeah.
Snowman, man bear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that rolls right off the tongue.
Yeah, it sure does. Mm-hmm. But basically the name is like, hey, it's a big bear that's white.
Bear, yeah. But, I still, as I said, we talked some about this in previous episodes about this. I'd never totally discounted the possibility that some of these native storytellers have actually had a little fun at the white man's expense from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they went out ahead of time and made some huge footprints in the snow just to mess with their heads, and then they come across, oh yeah, that abominable snowman dude. Oh, yeah.
Except for they were actually just saying that Yeti guy.
Yeah, Yeti dude.
And the Yeti we have proven, we have solid evidence, is actually just a bear. So I'm sorry, but Bumble's just a bear. Bumble the bear.
It's just a bear. Well, yeah.
Who tells really bad jokes.
Yeah.
No.
It's filthy.
You're the one.
I haven't said a filthy thing yet today.
Yeah. I don't know
but if you want,
that.
I can start right. Oh, wait, no, that would be filthy.
Yeah.
Don't say that.
No.
Well, that doesn't totally contradict my thesis, which is that the Bumble and the Yeti may be, the Himalayan brown bear and the Yeti may very well be the same thing.
They are.
Yeah.
But the whole origin...
And by the way, the Himalayan brown bear, they're very cute. They're fuzzy.
They are. They're really shaggy. Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
But the origin of the abominable snowman can be traced to this one, as a name, can be traced to this one article from 1921.
No.
Which means that it's just all...
This is where you're wrong, is that CBS and the U.S. government were way ahead of you there. I mean, they went back and backdated the text.
No, I'm telling you, this is all a Kennedy concoction.
Nah.
It's all blamed on the Kennedys.
I think we're going to have to agree to disagree.
It's always the Kennedys. All right, well, it being the Christmas season and all, I can tell where this is heading. We are all going to, this basically going to become a fist fight.
So family Christmas where we get drunk and brawl?
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's a normal Christmas for everybody, right?
Next thing you know, Devin's pulling out a switchblade, and I'm tired of getting carved up, frankly. So
all right, well, happy holidays, everybody, then.
So exactly. We're going to cut it a little bit short. And I want to lead all of our listeners with something special, which is I'm going to grab my guitar and I'm going to sing you a song. A real life song from the special Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Okay.
So are you guys ready?
Yeah. Let me just hit record real quick.
Okay, here we go.
Hey guys, Steve here. You are listening to one of our original 26 episodes. If you've listened to any of our new episodes, you're going to notice that we're sounding a little different in these ones.
Yeah, there's a reason for that.
There is.
They've been remastered.
They have been remastered.
Because they had a really annoying hum.
Yeah, I mean, a huge thanks to listener James for doing almost all of the legwork on this thing.
Yeah.
You'll also notice if you had listened to what we're calling the Lost 26 episodes before, and you're re-listening now, the music and sound effects are gone.
Yes, we've gone back to straight audio. So be warned, we sound a little different today than we do in what you're about to listen to.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Thinking Sideways.
I don't understand.
Does not compute.
You never know.
Take sufficient data to formulate a reply.
What?
Stories of things we simply don't know the answer to.
Hi, welcome. This is Thinking Sideways, the podcast. I'm Devin.
I'm Steve.
I'm Joe.
We're going to talk about another mystery. like we always do.
Oh, we likes a good mystery.
Yeah, and
It
this
tends
one,
to happen.
this one is totally on my par of things I like. We've talked about this. I like weird, mysterious noises and weird, mysterious deaths, and this is a weird, mysterious death.
And I don't like this death. This
I don't like
this
this.
one's creepy.
Yeah, I don't
it
like
is a
this
little
one
creepy.
either.
It's like, it's not.
Like our Halloween episode, this one's pretty gruesome. It's kind of heart-wrenching. If you're squeamish at all, if you've got kids, just skip this one. Seriously, skip this one. You guys, seriously, just skip this one. Okay. So the mystery we're talking about tonight is The Boy in the Box, which is also known as America's Unknown Child. So February 25th, 1957, a young man is checking his muskrat traps, and he spies a box from JCPenney that says it's got a bassinet in it. Upon further inspection, he finds the body of a 4-year-old boy that was battered and bruised and wrapped in a flannel blanket. He was afraid that his police would confiscate his traps, so he didn't report it, because you don't report those things, apparently.
Well, those traps are important.
Yeah.
So, how did they find out about this guy?
Well, a few days
did he come
later-
forward later?
Yeah, he came forward after it was reported. So a few days later, a college student said he spotted a rabbit running through the underbrush, and knowing there were animal traps in the area, he stopped his car to investigate and discovered the body. It took him a day to come up with that story and finally report it to the police because he was really in the area spying on women at the Good Shepherd School.
So you had to go up with a good story first, huh?
He didn't. So it took him a while to also report it.
Well, didn't one of them eventually admit that the only reason they came forward is because in confession their priest convinced him to come forward? I don't remember which one of them it was.
I suspect it was the second guy.
Okay.
That he went and.
That would make sense.
Yeah. So, but it only took him a day. The other guy had found it a couple days before that.
Okay.
So the boy has never been identified, and this case has never been solved.
All right.
Which is unusual for a 4-year-old to just go, to die, to be highly publicized, and then just...
Yeah, you would think that somebody would notice that the Jones family was missing a kid, for example.
Right. So that was the thing, was that initially the police thought, oh, well, we've got this case in the bag, Obviously somebody's going to report a 4-year-old boy missing, or someone will come forward and say, this is probably the work of a murderer. It probably wasn't somebody that knew this child. We'll just post all these flyers around and say, have you seen this boy? And that someone will come forward.
And they put a lot of flyers.
Out.
Like thousands.
Yes. And nobody ever came forward. Ever.
Did either of you look at the pictures of the flyers?
Yeah.
That were up?
Yeah.
I can't. In this day and age, that flyer would never be put up because it was of his dead face.
Yeah, it was a little gruesome.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you.
Picture of his head full on, straight forward, and then from either side, and then they also dressed him in boys' clothes of the time, sat him in a chair, and took pictures of him that way, hoping that maybe if somebody had been a visitor in a home, they would recognize him more that way.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to tell what somebody looks like if you've just got like a straight-on picture.
Yeah, how did he look sitting in the chair? Was he sort of like, kind of like slumped over and dead looking?
It's kind of creepy. He's sitting with his hands in his lap and just like very still. You can tell he's a dead
It
body.
looks like one of those strange Halloween photos that you would see of people where... Have you seen the ones where you walk by them and they change from left to right?
Yeah.
It looks as if it's the basis of one of those.
I was going to say it totally looks like one of those dummies that people put out like on their front porch during Halloween to like scare people.
Yeah, this one would definitely scare me.
Yeah, it would scare me too. So nobody ever reported a missing child that fit this description, and there were thousands of leads, and they were all dead ends. Apparently a bunch of people were saying, oh yeah, that looks just like my nephew. And to be fair, it's a pretty average looking 4-year-old boy. Anybody could say, oh, that looks like Johnny from down the street. I wonder if he's dead. I haven't seen him in a day because he's sick. Maybe that's him.
Yeah, it could be, yeah.
Yeah, the investigators decided to focus on the bassinet box, the box that he was found in. It was sold from JCPenney, and they found the store that it was sold from, which was in Upper Darby. Sorry, this is in Pennsylvania. I should have said that.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's on a dirt road, they found it. But in Pennsylvania, in Upper Darby, there was a JCPenney store where they sold this baby bassinet. They only sold 12. This store had only sold 12 of this model, apparently. And they could trace all of them back to the owner except for one, which is a little odd, right?
Yes.
So obviously it was this one. And then they took fingerprints and footprints of the boys' hands and feet and sent them out to all of the hospitals in the area. And then later they expanded that search to Canada as well as the entire nation. And nothing ever came back with that.
So there's never a match.
There's never a match.
So they were sending them to the hospital to compare to birth certificates?
Yeah. Yeah, to see if they could figure out who this kid was. And for more on that later, for reasons they thought that maybe they would have hospital records. But other than the box and the blanket, they found a royal blue corduroy men's cap in a trail leading directly from the box into the forest. And it still had tissue paper to maintain the manufacturer's shape. You know what I'm talking about?
So it was almost basically brand new.
It wasn't. It was worn, but it had been stuffed. Like if you have a nice hat and you put it back in a box,
Yeah, you can
put
stuff
the
something in it.
tissue back
Yeah.
in it so that it holds its shape.
Oh, okay, I got it.
The boy was described as having blue eyes, a fair complexion, and medium to light brown hair, but it was very crudely cut, which made investigators think that perhaps it had been cut after his death. It was really choppy.
Well, and wasn't it, didn't they find bits of hair in the clothing and stuff around him that, would suggest that it was cut?
Yeah.
Just before, just after his death?
Yes. His nails, however, were neatly trimmed, which for a 4-year-old is kind of rare, so they suspect that actually happened after his death as well.
Oh, so that was postmortem as well?
They think so, yeah.
Oh,
And,
okay.
there's no way to really tell, right, with
Yeah.
hair and nails, but they think that happened after his death as well. And
Oh,
he
that's
had...
really kind of creepy,
Yeah.
Cut his hair and his nails.
Yeah,
Oh.
and he had deep bruises covering all of his body and face. And the weather had been cold. It's Pennsylvania in February. So they said that the child could have been in the box from anywhere between 2 or 3 days to 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh, wow. That really makes it kind of hard to figure out. That's really hard to narrow down a time frame.
Yeah, it
When it's
really
really
is.
cold out. I mean, it makes sense. A body's preserved. Nothing's going to decompose
Right.
because it's too cold, but still.
And it's not snowing, it's just cold and dry. You
Yeah.
know, that's perfect body preservation.
So was the box sealed? Was it closed?
No,
The top was open.
the top was just open.
I'm kind of surprised no critters like muskrats, for example,
Yeah.
nibbled on the kid at
So
all.
I would assume that it was less time.
Yeah, I would think
especially
so,
since
yeah.
2 people within a fairly short time span discovered it.
Yeah.
That you would assume that if it was traveled that much, that there would be more people finding it earlier.
Yeah.
So I assume that it was shorter rather than longer time frame, but we don't know. So some more things about him. He had 7 scars, they recounted, 3 of which were clean enough to be surgical scars that had happened in a hospital or from a doctor.
Right.
2 of them were on his chest and groin. They had healed, quote, quite well, leaving only hairline traces. And there was another scar on his left ankle, which they said looked like a cut down incision, which is something they used to do transfusions. To get to a big vein, they would cut down this is so gross, I'm so sorry, cut down a big chunk of your ankle to get to a big vein and stick a needle in that to do blood transfusions.
Oh, basically peel all the skin back so you can get to things easier rather than trying to find them with the needle.
Right, and you would do that, on the ankle so that, it's a fast place to heal, and also if you have a scar on your ankle, it's not like it's disfiguring or anything like that.
Right. Well, and the veins are easier to get to in an ankle
They're
than
nice
it
and
would
big,
be, say, if you're going to cut down in somebody's between
Yeah.
the forearm and the bicep. There's a lot of tendency to have bad things happen. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so anyway.
that makes sense. But, ugh.
So
I'm liking this.
yeah, so anyway, he had 2 scars on the groin and the other
He had
scars
one
were
scar
where?
on his groin and one scar on his chest that were of surgical origin, ostensibly. And then he had a 1.5-inch scar on the left side of his chest and a round, kind of irregular scar on his left elbow. And there was an L-shaped scar on his chin that was about 1/4 of an inch long in each direction.
This poor little kid had kind of a rough go.
He did.
Yeah, sounds like. Did they consult with any surgeons about these surgical scars?
I mean, yes, but there's not much to be said about them. They're just,
There was no records,
there was
basically.
no record or anything like that. They didn't know who he was, so.
Well, it would be useful probably to try to find out show it to a surgeon, and he would say, well, that he was being operated on for his appendix because of the groin thing, or something to do with his heart, or whatever. Or
Sure.
he could identify the procedure that was done.
Sure. I don't think they were descript of any kind in terms of that. They said that he didn't have any vaccination scars, so he wasn't vaccinated.
Okay.
And he had been circumcised. All of these things kind of seem like he should have at least once visited the hospital.
Well, he's well cared for. I mean, aside from the fact that somebody gave him a serious beating, it sounds like he got medical care when needed.
At least at some point in his life.
Right.
Right. So they also did an ultraviolet light on his whole entire body, and they said that his left eye fluoresced a brilliant blue, which suggested that some kind of diagnostic dye had been applied, that maybe he had some kind of chronic eye ailment of some sort in his left eye.
Oh. So is that like basically something they would do when you go to the eye doctor to get tested for astigmatism or something?
I think the impression that I have is that it was more as like a treatment. Like he would be needing eye drops for some kind of something that was wrong with his eye. Although what that might have been, the boy's 4 years old. This is a lot of stuff to be happening to a 4-year-old. And then, as we've said, he was beaten to death and then just kind of discarded.
I know, did they do an autopsy? Was that the cause of death?
The cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head. It was they said that it was 4 hard blows to the head. So here's some more kind of interesting facts. One of his hands and both of his feet had been wrinkled, which in a way that like pruned, like when they're submerged in water.
Oh, so he had pruny skin.
Yeah. So they had been submerged in water maybe for an extended period of time just before he died, because that apparently doesn't happen if you're dead. Your skin doesn't actually prune up, it bloats up instead.
So 1 foot and 2 hands?
1 hand and
1 hand and 2 feet.
But not the skin above that was relatively normal as far as I could tell?
Yep.
Well, that's weird.
It's weird,
How do you get those in the water and nothing else?
I don't know.
Okay.
Standing in a shallow tub,
Yeah. He probably had not eaten 3 to 4 hours before death, although his esophagus contained a dark brown residue, which indicated that he probably vomited shortly before death.
If it is indeed that somebody, wailed on him a lot, which is obviously what it seems like, then it would be perceivable that that would have caused him to throw up.
Yeah. Additionally, he was severely malnourished. So, for all of the good care that it seems he may have had, it also seems he may not have had.
Well, he got
such good care.
Maybe got good care at one point, and then was handed off to somebody else who abused the hell out of him.
Yeah, so there's some actually pretty interesting theories, one of which definitely ties into that sort of idea that he was at one point cared for very well in his life and then came into bad times with a different family. But first I want to talk about the foster home theory, which is there was a foster home that was located like a mile and a half away from where he was found. And they had kids that were all school-aged kids they were fostering. There was a stepdaughter that lived there, and she was 20. And the theory was that perhaps it was her child out of wedlock because, in 1957, that was still kind of a big thing.
It is a big faux pas.
And that they had tried to care for him, but he was just so sickly, given all of these things, that they eventually just decided that he needed to die. So they beat him to death. And then dropped his body, which seems unlikely to me, I guess.
It seems unlikely that people who foster kids would just, say, this kid sucks, let's just beat him to death. There's got to be better ways to handle that situation.
But I've read accounts, and I don't know if this is, something that we're going to go over, about the stepdaughter and the relationship with the quote-unquote father in the house.
Yeah.
Because that was a very weird thing, and...
It was very weird. They were doing all these investigations in 1957, and they reopened the case in 1998. There was this detective named Bristow, and he doggedly attacked this. He just wanted to know everything there was to know, and he never let it go. It was like his career passion was this case.
Now, how did he come onto the case? Was he one of the first investigators, or was he the fingerprint guy?
He was the fingerprint guy.
Okay, so he's the one who had to do, when they were doing the fingerprints and the footprints, if I remember in the reading, that's when the story really stuck with him, and he couldn't let it go.
Yeah, he was an interesting character. He would go visit the grave once a week, and
sounds a little bit obsessive.
Yeah, I think you kind of, this is the sort of case that if it hits you and you're there, it hits you, and it's part of your life forever.
Yeah, but it's he must have been on the force a hell of a long time, because 31 years between 1957 and 1998.
Yeah.
Or excuse me, 41 years. What am I saying?
Yes. So when they reopened the case in 1998, a police lieutenant by the name of Tom Augustine took charge of the investigation, and he went back to this foster home because they exhumed the body and took some DNA, and they figured, we'll just go test this girl for DNA, and if it matches, then we've got our answer, and that's super easy because, we couldn't do that in 1957.
Very true.
And they went back and they said, we're looking for so-and-so and the father and the stepdaughter, and he said, she's my wife now.
Oh. Hey, it's good enough for Woody Allen. It's good enough for them.
Yeah.
And that's why the DNA obviously proves that it wasn't them, but still it leads me to think that there's got to be some odd stuff that was going on in that household.
I agree.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't explain the story, but
there was something kind of weird going on there. So one of the other theories is they refer to it as the M theory. And in a lot of sources, they only refer to her as M. But her name was Mary. And she was this woman, and she brought her theory forward in 2002. She said that her abusive mother purchased an unknown boy named Jonathan from his birth parents in 1954, basically to have a beating bag.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. Her story is, she said, Mary said that her mom suggested Jonathan to extreme physical and sexual abuse for 2.5 years, and then in a fit of rage killed him by slamming him into the floor after he vomited in the bathtub. Mary's mother then cut the boy's long hair and dropped him just on the then secluded Fox Chase area. Mm-hmm. Which is where they found him.
And correct me if I'm wrong, at the time that was like a one-lane gravel road that was kind of a dump area that everybody would just take their stuff. And
that's where all the bodies went.
That was kind of one of the things that was so disturbing in this. Some people say, well, he was being prepared for a burial. That's why his hair was cut, his nails were trimmed. He was found with his arms crossed in this
and wrapped in a shroud.
And that somebody was taking him to bury him, and they got spooked because there were people around, so they just dropped him. But